but separate who you are as a football player and who you are as a person. If you can establish that the man on the field and his performance on the field doesn't mean anything in regards to who the man is off of it, like, that will save your life and a lot of other people's lives as well.
He is such an effective scrambler. And again,
he'll scramble. He's got room. Carta Samuels is in for a touchdown.
Welcome to Connected Podcast, while we connect, while we reflect, and hope you put the knowledge that we give you to the test. I am your host, Aaron Williams, with my guy right here, co-host Brad Smith. And before we get into our special guest, we got to check in. You know what time it is. So, Brad, How was your week? What'd you do? How's your mental? All that.
I never can complain, but some weeks are tougher than others.
Be real. I love that.
Long week, long couple weeks. Have a few 7-on-7 teams that we're working with from 12 to 14 or to 15U, and played a couple tournaments, won a couple, but also just managing all the kids and athletes and their schedules and illnesses and coaching. It's a grind, but
welcome to being a GM, man.
No, and plus you don't get paid for it.
That is true.
That's different.
That's true.
GM, but it's been good. Family's good, man. I really can't complain. How about you, man?
That's good. I've been good. You know, working on my golf game still in the high 90s.
What are you trying to do? Are you just for fun?
No, like once I get like that guy, yeah. I might, why not go pro or something, you know?
You go pro.
I want to do something where I can get paid. I love playing the game for fun, but I'm a competitor, man. I got to compete. So anyone that wants to challenge your boy, hit me up, Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case may be. I ain't scared. I ain't ducking. All right. So I want all the smoke. But
I think a better bet would be like pickleball or something, but not like,
I've never played pickleball.
I think we can dominate pickleball.
I'm down for pickleball.
Too many people spend too much
time. Give me a few months and let me get to the rules and everything, and we'll take it down.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
But we got a special guest for you guys today.
Yes, sir.
We played against each other. My man, starting quarterback, started at Wyoming, then ended his college career in Vanderbilt. 2009, we played against each other while I was at Texas. Big time recruit. Did his thing at Wyoming and Vanderbilt. Won bowl games. Worked at Mizzou, cultural and character development, which is super cool. I know it's not really a job that every school has, but I feel like every school needs. Austyn Carta Samuels, man, thank you for coming, bro.
Appreciate you, Aaron. You can go ahead and tell him the story too, bro. You could tell. You
tell the story. All right. So my guy Austyn is such a competitor. I love his competitiveness and how he controls the game and controls his team. We were playing each other in 2009 at Wyoming in his house. By the way, the index of I couldn't breathe. I think I did like 4 plays and I was like, "Yo, coach, get me out of here." But Austyn was scrambling one time and we were mouthing off. I think a couple plays before or something, and it was one of those plays where he's combing the sidelines and him and I just kind of looked at each other and just kind of gave us that like man up type of look. And we collided. And I ain't gonna lie, for a quarterback, he gave me a nice little thumb. I ain't gonna lie, just a nice little, but I had to give him the best because I couldn't let that happen to me. And through that, I knew that guy was competitive through the whole game. The first half, he got us down, which was unlike us being down at the time. So we have a guy who competes and who has been there, compete at the highest level, and also who has helped other players get to their point make to the highest level as well, with their quarterbacks, with Locke, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But Austyn, give us a little bit to tell us about your upbringing and your high school experience, your recruiting, and all that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm from the Bay Area in California, and
hey, shout out San Jose, the area. Let's
go. Thank you. But went to a really established like football high school, an all boys Jesuit high school, Bellarmine College Prep. We ran an ancient offense, so like a wing T offense, which like being a quarterback in that type of system is obviously really, really difficult, but we were damn good. We had 7 of us that played Division I college football. So I kind of was in the background, like in my high school career. Like we had some more prominent players for sure. And it always pissed me off that we weren't throwing the ball more, but we were winning. We were winning, so we were handling our shit. We were up there in the top 50 teams in the country. We won a lot of games, CCS championship, the whole deal. And basically my recruiting process was wild. It was wild, as it is for probably everybody. But, going into my junior year, I got offered by Purdue. They told me to my face, and Aaron, Brad, you guys are the same way, is like when you develop that connection with somebody and they tell you like, we see Drew Brees in you and the way that you are, I was like, shit, where do I sign up? You know what I mean?
Right?
Let's go.
Sure.
So I committed to Purdue actually. And I went out there on a visit. It's a funny story and I'll keep it super short, but basically like I was always insecure about my height because like I'm only like 6'1.5". And they put me up on the wall and they did like the height thing, right? And they pushed my shit down, bro. I'm telling you, they pushed me down into the fucking ground and they go 5'11", and I was like, no, bro, like that's not right. I'm a kid, you know what I mean? So I'm like, no, that's not right. And he's like, what are you telling me that that's not right? Anyway, like I rose a little bit of stink. And then on my way back, after I committed to the college, to the airport, like GA's driving me to the airport. I'm talking to my dad. I'm like, Dad, you have no idea, bro. These guys clocked me in at 5'11" or whatever. They tell the head coach, they ended up dropping me. So Purdue literally dropped me because of those interactions. That was the start of all of it. Like basically after that, I committed to San Jose State because Marcus Arroyo was the head coach or the offensive coordinator there under Dick Tomey. And I was like, yo, I just want to play in front of my family. Like, that's what I want. And then as recruiting goes, a week before signing day, Dave Christensen, who Brad probably knows was the offensive coordinator for Chase Daniel over at Mizzou, gets the head coaching job at Wyoming. He poaches Marcus Arroyo, who is the offensive coordinator from San Jose State. So I'm destroyed because I'm like, yo, I've already been dropped by a college. Then I had all these offers that like I chose to go to a smaller school to kind of do something in my backyard. And now that's up in the air. And so basically, dude, I went up to the University of Wyoming. Official visit was terrible. Like they took me on a snowmobile out in the middle of, winds and all that. And I'm like, dude, but I had an opportunity to play football. And so for me, I was like, let's do this thing. And that's kind of where life took me. Was I went up to Wyoming and then I'm playing you as an 18-year-old and starting as a true freshman in college football. So that was kind of the ride, but that recruiting journey was crazy. And then my brother kind of got the opposite end of the spectrum because that's a 4-star Elite 11 quarterback that got offered by everybody and went through all of his stuff too. So I'm sure that'll come up at some point, but that's kind of what the road to college looked like.
Nice. So how did Wyoming come up for you? You said that you went to Purdue, then San Jose State, then after San Jose State, like how did Wyoming come on the map?
Yeah, so I didn't even know Wyoming was like a Division I college at that point. Like I'd seen them beat Tennessee like one time, I think, like something happened. But no, I knew absolutely nothing about them. And so the offensive coordinator, though, like you guys know how important relationships are, and like that was what I had, was my relationship with my OC and quarterback coach at San Jose State. And he was 28 years old. He went on to be the offense coordinator at Oregon with Justin Herbert, and the head coach at UNLV, just got canned over there. But good dude, really good dude. And so I had that rapport and connection with him. So basically like 7 days before signing day, when Dave Christensen gets that head job at Wyoming and calls over to take Marcus, the head coach and wide receiver coach show up to my house. And like, you guys know the deal. Like, this is it. I'm about to sign the NLI and my guy's not there. And I was like, yo, where's Marcus? And they were like, that's what we're here to talk to you about. And I was like, I just ran to my room, bro. I just remember crying my eyes out. I remember coming out. We had prepared like this big dinner for all of them and stuff. And I remember just my head being down on the table. And like, they were like, we can't recover from this, huh? And my mom was like, I don't know, man. We don't know which way's up at this point. Like that's what that was like. And that's why I say like the Wyoming visit was like, I love the school, all that. It is 2.5 hours from Denver, which is pretty cool. But like, as far as a California kid going to some town with 13,000 people, 1,000 feet higher than Mile High in the freezing cold, 8 months of snow, like that wasn't the deal. But then comes to like the reason why I play this game and the reason why I am the way I am is to fucking play. And I had an opportunity there with people who believed in me. And I actually talked to Chase Daniel on the phone because we're short, and I wore 5 at Wyoming because of him at Mizzou. And so Brad, I wish I was a little bit older so that I could have caught your days a little bit more. But
All right, that's not
I
a bad
had
one to see.
chases, so I was just trying to replicate that midget that I saw on tape was me. So I was like, dude, let's do this thing. So that's kind of how I got up there.
You've been through it, right? High school, that whole recruiting process, not just recruiting, but the mental ups and downs, the struggles, the grind to kind of get to where you are, to get to where you wanted to be in high school, and then you go to college and you have all the different moving pieces that happen in your life, and then you get to Wyoming. You had some success. You're starting. You play against Texas. You guys are doing well, beating some teams people maybe thought you weren't going to beat, and then something else happens and there's another shift in your life. So can you talk about what happened at Wyoming and then moving on to Vanderbilt?
Definitely, man. I think, I say all the time, like I've lived 10 lives, man. So like you can go down any of these rabbit holes and there's a million stories next to all of those too. But it's like, I show up to Wyoming. I start as a true freshman, which obviously like in today's age is pretty unheard of. Like I didn't even early enroll. So like I just learned it in the summer and then they plugged me up and I'm going. And like, basically there's an ignorance that you play with when you're young where it's like, I'm just fucking here to compete, bro. I'm just here to do my thing. And like, I don't care that I don't really know which way to slide the protection. I don't really care that I don't know how this concept really works. Like, I'm gonna fucking make it work. You know what I mean? Like that's the way that I played the game. And so that freshman year, the reason I list the accolades is because like it sets up what came next. But it's like I was a Mountain West Conference Freshman Player of the Year, which at the time they had like Utah, BYU, TCU that were all in the top 20 teams in America at that time. I was a Mountain West Conference Freshman Player of the Week or Player of the Week in the conference 4 times, which like broke a record. We beat Derek Carr and Ryan Matthews on ESPN in the New Mexico Bowl. And I was the MVP of that bowl game. So like you could just imagine that for an 18-year-old kid, that was about.
I like how you try to breeze through that. We beat Derek Carr and the Mexico Bowl. I'll be there.
You guys don't know, man. There's more shit to talk about like that. So I'm just fucking trying to get through it.
Yeah.
Let them know. Talk your stuff. Bro.
Talk your stuff, man.
Yeah.
But that's, like at 18 years old, and this is what I love about what you guys do, right? What we're all here for is it's like, it's the heart of the athlete. And so it's like, for me, it's like, imagine being 18 years old and doing that as the quarterback of an organization. Like, you guys know the money behind college football and the way that all works. And it's like, I'm completely ignorant to all of that. But I also am watching myself make a massive impact on a community that hasn't been to a bowl game in over a decade. And now we're going, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And so I came back for my sophomore year. I was voted a team captain as a true sophomore, that was the first time in the history of the school that we did that. And I kept working and I kept getting better. But the problem is like, I love you, Dave, but he was tough on our guys, like really tough on our guys. And as far as the culture of the organization, like after playing for James Franklin, we had a lot of holes like in the culture of our organization, right? And we recruited Texas, Florida, Hawaii, California. And it's like, who from those states wants to come stay 9 months in the fucking snow, bro? Like it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Oh, and
He sound like it's in Buffalo, right?
Oh no, that's
damn near, bro. Damn near. I'm telling you, like that wind was ruthless, dude. That shit's ruthless. But
I had Coach C too. He was my OC, yeah, and so I understand.
But also, Coach C gave me something. He gave me something. He definitely rallied everyone on our team and in our community around me too. So like that was part of like when we get to why he blocked my release leaving the college and stuff is like, that's part of that is like he gave me a lot before I did that. But long story short, like made an impact on the community, man. 3.8 GPA. I got the baddest girl on campus. She's an amazing person as well, right? Life's riding high, dude. Life is fucking good. We go into that year and we start to struggle. And like I had known the work that I had been putting in. So there were some things that like for me, I'm like you guys, man, don't put a fucking ceiling over my head. Like just don't. Like I have to feel like I can continue to grow. And what I felt for that stagnation during that season was like, what am I doing, bro? Like I'm in an environment where like nobody else besides maybe the Gibson brothers on defense are pushing themselves like this. Like I know that there's a higher level to this shit and we're not doing it. And so I basically knew in week 6 that I wanted to leave. And this is for the athletes. Like that don't know these backside stories of how these things work. But we go down to New Mexico, we lose to a defeated football team. So they were 0-6 and we were 3-3 and we lost, right? So I come in and I'm a young kid, dude. I'm 19 years old. And I was like, Coach, I don't want to talk to the media right now. And he was like, you're going to fucking talk to the media. You're going to do what I tell you to do. You're captain of the football team. So I was like, all right. So I went to the weight room and the head coach is up on the podium and I'm listening to him talk before I go. And he basically said, we laid out a great game plan for our guys. They didn't execute. Like, this is on the players. Bro, don't do that shit around me. Don't do that shit around me. Like, I'll die for my guys. Like,
You know what the saying is, man. I ain't going to, you know what the saying is. Do not shit on coaches, and the coaches will try not to shit on you. Except they will.
I had to sit there while I'm in that state and listen to this man flame us. And so I got up there and I flamed fucking everybody. And I flamed myself first, you know? But I said, like, hey, first of all, this shit starts with me. This shit starts with me. But I said, on top of that, if you lose to a team that's 0-6 that has no business being on the field with you, there's a lot bigger problems than just the players. And I was like, we got to get this shit figured out. So never forget, the next morning, you guys know it, I'm in the indoor stretching and I get screamed from the offensive coordinator, Austyn. I'm like, fuck. All right. So I follow him. There's no word said. I walk into a staff room of 30 people. It's one of the only times I've actually told this publicly, but there's 30 staff members in that room. And I walk in and the offensive line coach throws the newspaper at me. And our head coach goes, read it. And I was like, all right. So I read the shit, right? I read exactly what I said to him. And the head coach goes, well, you stand by your words? And I said, every fucking word. And he said, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like that was that, right? And so then they realized, like, yo, we might lose this dude. So they started kind of kissing my ass the last 5 weeks of the season, started playing better, the whole thing. But I knew I was out. So at the end of the season, like, I walked off the field crying after that last game, just soaking in every moment because I knew I was leaving. I told my offensive coordinator I was leaving the next day. Basically, one thing leads to another. Head coach has me in his office. He's like, you realize I'm never going to let you play Division I college football again, right? And I was like, you don't have that power. Like, you're not going to be able to do that. And he's like, I do have that power and I'm going to make sure it happens. And I was like, all right, whatever, dude. Like, that was it. And so it ended like super salty like that. So I got offered like 40 scholarships within the next week and a half and I couldn't take any of them. Like, you guys know how the rules were back then. Like, they have rights to you for 4 to 5 years. And so they denied my release to transfer. So I actually went on a visit to Montana. I went on a visit to Valdosta State because it was like, yo, like, I'm either going to play D1 AA ball or I don't even know if I can go back up to D1. So my mom finds a loophole, like calling the NCAA website, all this stuff. And like, basically we found out because I'd already played 2 years too. So like, that was a really rare situation. And I found out that I could take 30 hours at a junior college, graduate with an associate's degree, and then be able to go back up to play Division I football. So I couldn't take any of the offers that I had. So imagine being 19 years old, like king of the community or whatever. And now like I'm leaving, my girlfriend and I break up. I was kind of I'm an optimist for sure. So I felt like everybody loved me in that community and all of that. And like, you leave and then you realize like a lot of that was just the jersey that you were wearing. And like that was hard for me to realize and like soak in that. I'm back at home. Like, I'm living on my couch while my brother and sister are in the house. You know, like, for me, that's when the spiral started, man. Like, that was when I just like, I really questioned like how a coach could do something like that to you after you've done everything that you could for them and for the university. I've come full circle to be able to understand that. But like, that spiral is where the root of my pain is and why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I align with so much of what you guys are doing is that common purpose from having been through this shit. And so just laying in that, bro, it was the hardest time of my life. I got into a car accident. Like, I broke my left wrist in the last football game of the season. So like, I couldn't even throw during that time. And then grace of God, for sure. I was really struggling. I was about to go to the University of Arizona. I was driving out there to go play for them. And I get a call from a 615 area code. You've been accepted into Vanderbilt University. And I was like, no, I haven't. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they were like, are you Austyn Carta Samuels? Like, you've been accepted. And I was like, what? So we get off the phone. I call my dad. I'm like, yo, dad, like, what's the deal here? Like, I just got accepted into Vandy. And my grandfather had gone there. And he's like, you need to call your mom. So I called my mom, and my mom was like, Austyn, if there's anything I realized in all this shit, it's that I can't rely on football. And so she's like, I applied to Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Vanderbilt, a few other schools. And basically I got accepted. This is where God does beautiful things for you. Is like James Franklin had been hired 2 months before that. So one of the best head coaches in the country, my mentor, one of my heroes for sure, still so close with him, the head coach up at Penn State. Like, he just got there with something to prove. So I got shit to prove. He's got shit to prove. He forced me to walk on. I walk on. I'm on the scout team getting my ass kicked because I'm still ineligible. So I do a whole fall like that. And then basically go into my junior and senior year and compete with Jordan Rodgers my junior year, start 3 games, but it's kind of like both of us. And then my senior year, they gave me the gig, and I was a captain and starting quarterback for that team. We were top 25 in America, beat Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee and all that. And I guess I'll just finish it. I'll finish it is like going into that year, like I had thought I had been through everything that you could put me through. And basically, like, it deserves its own podcast, but 4 of our players assaulted a female at Vandy, and I had nothing to do with it. I was no part of it, but there are conversations and things that happen in the locker room that I grew privy to, right? So the police get involved with all of this. Well, they put half our team as witnesses in this investigation, and that investigation was a rape investigation. And so what happens 2 weeks later? Front of the Nashville papers, star Vanderbilt quarterback listed as witness in rape investigation. I had nothing to do with anything. I was never in the building. I never had anything to do with any of it. But you guys know this, like the platform of the way that things work and how they use your name to do these things. And I'll never forget, and it gets me every single time, like my dad calling me and just being like, Austyn, like, I need you to tell me the truth on everything that happened. And I was like, I did. Like, I told you everything. I've laid out everything that happened. And he was like, I know, but like, one more time. And like, if you know how close me and my dad are, like, I dropped to my knees, bro, and just started bawling, crying. Cause I was like, there's nobody in the world then that doesn't know, like, that knows the truth on this deal. So again, like, heavy is the head that wears the crown. While you go through all this, it's like that shit is just heavy. And then going into the season, I'm balling out, throwing for over 300 yards a game. I'm leading the SEC in passing. I go into week 6 and we're playing Georgia. And my grandfather, my hero, is a psychologist. And that's what, as I talk about psychology, like, that's where it comes from. He passes away of a stroke on Tuesday. I tear my ACL in the 3rd quarter while we're beating Aaron Murray and Todd Gurley on that Saturday. And basically, like, I'll never forget that experience, just looking up at the sky and being like, my grandfather's gone, bro. Like, this is just my knee. Like, get your ass up. And I jogged off the field, did my thing. I was there for my team. I flew back right after the game and spoke at my grandfather's funeral. I'm like, my senior year is over. I fly back to be with my guys. They look at my leg. They're like, yo, I don't know why, but there's not a lot of swelling here. Well, I tore my ACL, but they were like, yo, you squat so heavy and like you have so much strength there. Do you want to try to keep going? Do you want to try to play? And I was like, shit, give me a fucking second chance. Like, it's on, right? So I did it. And the last 4 games of the season, we beat Tennessee, Kentucky, Wake Forest, and somebody else while playing on a torn ACL. So that's kind of like how my career finished. And basically, to take us to wherever you guys want to take me next is like, that's what birthed my calling and my purpose, man. Like, after all the shit that I've been through and the weight of all of that, I say all the time, like, I could have been crushed a million times. And if I didn't have my family and that support system to just be there for me, a lot of people now with where I'm at in my life are like, Austyn, like, you're only 32 years old, bro. The shit you're doing, like the shit you did in college football, this is amazing. Like, how do you do all of that? And I was like, bro, you do the same thing if you went through the shit that I went through. Like, you do the exact same thing. I'm not taking a page in just that super humble book. I'm just being real. Like, if you went through the shit I went through, you would not be able to coach college football and watch that bullshit and be like, yeah, I'm good with this. I'm going to stay up here. No, fuck that, bro. I can't do that. And that's probably why we're here.
What made you, while you were going through that, while you and your coach had a disagreement, I'm just going to take you back to Wyoming real quick.
Yeah.
While y'all two had a difference of opinions and as far as what was going on during that season, when you look back now, yourself now compared to that 18, 19-year-old kid, do you feel like you could have done something better in that situation? or you feel like, you know what, I did what I did and I'm fine with what I did? Or do you feel like, you know what, coach, you may have called, you may have like threw me on the bus, but I'm gonna go high ground. I'm gonna keep balling, and then once I'm done with this year, I'm gonna be out? Or was it just like, nah, this man just called me, I'm gonna call him right back out? Do you feel like you could have changed that, or you feel like, I did what I did, and I still stand on to this day?
No. I did what I did. I stand on it like 10 toes in every way with that. Like, I know what I did was right because it was what was right for my football team. Like, the one thing that as I look back, because I've gone through every single day rethinking like what I could have done different or if anything was wrong or what any of that. Like, the only thing is I just wish that I understood the coach's perspective better. Like, after being a coach now, like, I understand why these guys are miserable. I understand why they say some of the shit that they say. I understand why they put guys through some of what they put them through. It's still not okay, but like I was very like, you're the villain. Like, you just turned on my guys. Like, you're dead to me, without understanding like all the pressures and all the things that go into their seat as well. You know what I mean? And that's, for me, as I've grown, I say all the time, like, these college coaches, man, I got so much respect for every single one of you trying to weather that storm. And unfortunately, like, what we're seeing in college football is an epidemic where a lot of the good ones are leaving. A lot of the good ones are leaving because they can do other things that ultimately fulfill their calling and their purpose. The ones who are staying, a lot of them are the ones who never got that ego love when they were younger, and they need that ego love now. And that's why we're kind of in a lot of the shit that we're in.
And we're going to get into kind of how we met at Mizzou and kind of where that was in your journey. But when we go back to like these aspiring young athletes that want to be college athletes or current collegiate athletes, and we talk about like the process, what you've gone through have obviously made you the man you are today, giving you the passion and desire and all those kind of things. I don't know. It's just me just being around the youth sports game and high school athletes is so many times we want to skip steps. Like we want to skip the pain. You talk about pain is fueling you. Pain fueled us in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But now there's so many people that are trying to skip the step to avoid pain. Parents are trying to avoid the pain process that happens in order to get where you are. How would you address, like, not even address, what would you say to younger athletes, aspiring athletes, or even guys in college now who they want to be great, or a parent wants their kids to go to college, but they're skipping steps. They're like, I'm just trying to find the loaded team, or
they're not going where a situation is best for them.
Yeah, basically. Well, yeah, or the situation is best for them, but like, the pain happened to me because I didn't want to be carried on a team. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I wanted to be the one who made the team better, right? Like, or I didn't want to skip steps or cheat or like do this, and this in order to be successful. What do you, just in terms of skipping steps, the steps that you see the people skip in life and in sports, how would you talk about that?
Meeting them with where they're at, to me, is the most important thing. And like, meeting them where they're at is saying, you're talking to Brad Smith, talking to Aaron, you're talking to Austyn right now. Only reason you're talking to us is because of the shit we went through. It's the only reason. So for you to think that this is the way that you want the road to go, I'm telling you right now, you will not be successful for whatever your definition is of success with that type of mindset. That is the opposite of a growth mindset. That's the opposite of an evolving mindset. And if we're going to take that approach to life, I can promise you that carrot that's dangled out in front of you is just going to keep running away from you. You're going to keep being dealt more. I use a quote all the time with our quarterbacks, like, the world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need, like, every time. And so you're going to be met with that over and over and over and over again until you either evolve or it's going to keep dealing it to you. And you're going to wallow in that. You're going to spiral away from that. You're going to get scared of that. Another way that I like to say it is like, you're flying to Hawaii for vacation. Would you have wanted the pilot to skip flight school? Like, you're getting brain surgery. Like, would you have wanted your doctor to skip part of his practice? It's like greatness is found in those lonely hours. Greatness is found in that introspection. Like, we'll get into obviously like spirituality, like relationship with self, but like that's what's dying more than anything right now is these athletes are so connected to so many other things that they've lost where it all comes from.
They're not connecting with themselves.
And you guys know that. You guys have lived that. That's why we got this light right here. Like, that's why I got this shit. That's why you guys got this shit. And that's why people listen. Is because we've had that. We've gone through that. So by pushing that away, I promise you'll never be on this podcast.
Very cool.
Woo.
Hey,
Preaching.
it's preaching right
Come on,
here.
go ahead.
Come on,
I
man.
got another question. But
Go ahead. No, throw it. Go ahead. Throw it out.
No,
there.
I mean, just it's to take us to the next thing. So if you had something about this, go ahead.
No, I had something else, but
All
go
right,
ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So okay, then we meet at Mizzou. So you play at Vanderbilt. Coach James Franklin is your guy. He goes to Penn State, and you end up kind of owning his staff for a little bit.
I went up there for the summer and basically just worked with them as like an intern for the summer. But what I love about James so much is he's like, bro, go earn your fucking stripes somewhere else. He's like, you're gonna be as good of a coach as you want to be. He's like, you already know all of us. Don't ride our coattail. Go somewhere else. Like, go do your shit. And I was like, all right, cool. So it was a summer there. And then what's wild is actually the reason I got the job at Missouri was because Gary Pinkel knew all the shit that Dave Christensen put me through at Wyoming. And then he had to play my ass when I was a senior at Vanderbilt. And so he knew the whole thing. And so right when the SEC network found out like that I wanted to coach, like he called right away, bro, and they hired me.
Oh, that's crazy. It's crazy.
Relationships.
It's relationships. We talk about this connected athlete platform and everything that we're building. We talk about relationships, authentic, pure relationships, being true to yourself. And then people come down the line and like, hey, I remember you. I remember what happened to you. I remember how you carried yourself. Come here, coach for me. Come here, help me out. All right, go ahead.
Coming off relationships, what are your keys for kids who are going through recruitment right now? From a recruiter himself that was at Mizzou at one point, what are the key? Like, what do you look for? What are the keys that these young athletes need to focus more on or pay attention to more on instead of? Because I know with social media, there's a lot of false information that are putting out there as far as like, you need to put this video in to this coach. You need to send this video to this university. You need to do this. You need to go to this camp. What do you think for you yourself, who has actually been there, done that, and who has recruited a top-notch quarterback like Drew Lock? What would your advice to these young kids be? What can they do to get to where they want to be? And if they're not where they're at, where can they get to where they can start at and get to where they want to be?
Know who they are and get better. Focus on their development. What you have right now is you have a world where there's a million people who can make money off of telling you how you're going to get recruited. When the reality is you get recruited off of how you play and off of who you are. So for them, what I like to lay out for these guys is there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity here. Like, you haven't gotten offered yet. Good. You don't have NIL people talking to you yet. Good.
Distractions right there, if you ask me.
It's developing relationship with self, because I promise you, when you're on that stage, like, you're going to need to know who you are, or else you're not going to be worth shit on that front. And as far as your development, there's just so many details now that with YouTube and people like us that are out here talking and spreading the good word, like, if you want to find it, you can find it. You can find out how to be great. Shit, if you want to shoot well, go watch Steph Curry. Like, go watch what he does on YouTube. You can see it. You can see how Kobe Bryant works out. You can see how these guys do what they do. It's right in front of you. It's right in front of you. So worrying about all the external stuff, you're just a part of, I hate classifying into lion and sheep, but it is what it is. Like, you're just a part of the sheep, bro. You're just a part of the herd. Like, anybody that's a lion understands, like, I don't give a shit when it comes to me. It's coming to me. Like, That's what it is. So it's more of a perspective shift. It's more of a mentality shift. I mean, kids know how to put their bio information on Twitter right now. Like people know your high school should be in there and your height and weight should be in there. Like they know that. Like, save a lot of money on all these recruiting services. Cause like, I can tell you this, I'm the director of recruiting at the University of Missouri, getting 400 emails from one of the top prominent companies every day, pitching me a 5'6", 145-pound running back to come to the University of Missouri. So I flag all your emails. They're all in the trash. I'm never reading anything that you're saying. On top of the fact that me as a director of recruiting in the SEC, who am I calling? I'm calling Brad. I'm going, yo, Brad, who's bad down in Austin, bro?
All right, before
Who
hold
can
up.
play?
Before we get in that, because that's a big chunk of what we talk about. All right, so let's set it up first, Austyn. So you get to Missouri, you become, what was your first position, and then how did you end up as recruiting coordinator? Then we get into some questions specifically on how you handled that position. So what was your first job at Missouri?
So I came in as a recruiting graduate assistant. So I'm just in the recruiting department. I'm kind of like, I'm in our staff meetings, but like I'm not really a part of like the big football staff or whatever, right? Like the powers that be, the knights at the table, right? So I'm down just working my ass off every day, all day. Typical GA life, dude. Like no money, no nothing, 17 hours a day, like in there, right? The whole deal. And basically like I'm very observant, obviously. And so like I'm observing everything that's going on within the program. And after my 2 years, I wanted to get my master's in educational and counseling psychology. So I got that done. And then once I got that done, I called my mom and dad and I was like, yo, mom, dad, like, I don't want to do this shit. I was like, I'm watching like what's going on up here. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And my mom was like, that's awesome, Austyn, go tell the head coach. So I went up there and I went up there and I told the head coach and he said, we can't lose you. Like I can't afford to lose you. Like the light stuff, like just you're a big part of this staff in this building. Like I need you here. And I was like, I mean, I really don't know what you want me to tell you just because like I've made my decision. And he was like, what if I promote you to being the director of recruiting? And like, so then I still was like in my head, no, you know what I mean? But I called my mom and she gave me incredible advice. She was just like, Austyn, like, to be 25 years old as a director of recruiting in the SEC with a staff of 8 people that work for you, like this says a lot about who you are as a person and it increases your influence there. So you're going to be able to do way more of the things that you do want to do up there. And so I was like, say less, that makes sense to me. So I took that job. I did that for a year and a half. And so that was the director of recruiting gig. Like that's how that went down.
Did it take you some time to think about it, or once your mom gave you that advice where you're like, yeah, that makes total sense, I need to do this?
I would say one of my superhero traits is delayed gratification. So when she told me like the way she said what she said to me, I'm always impact and influence. Like that's everything to me. Like my life is going to be measured by the number of lives that I touch. Like not anything else. Like that's what's going to do it for me. So like what I saw was it made sense because I was like, yo, if I do take this step, I know that that's ultimately just increasing whatever it is that I'm going to do next. It's going to give me that. And so, no, it just made sense. And so it wasn't that hard. But the reason I said the delayed gratification thing is because like I was willing to not love what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like I had to still watch the bullshit going on and see the way that our guys were being treated and stuff and just knowing all the holes that were being created. And like, yeah, that's kind of how the next.
Take some sacrifices to get where you're at. And I feel like some people, or at least these kids nowadays, they kind of forget that mindset and forget that contribution to where they got. They feel like, you know, I need to get from here to here in like tomorrow. And it's like, that's not the case. Like it takes a whole cycle of mess ups, mistakes, bumps and bruises, ups and downs, the good, the bad, the ugly to get to where they're at now. And I feel like when people look at social media, they just think, oh, they just got there overnight. And that's just not the case. And I'm glad you're telling these stories because, man, your grandfather passed, your coach turned on you, you had to go to a different school, you got a new job, you started getting other, like there's a lot of ups and downs, but like look where you're at now. And I think kids need to understand and see and hear these stories that nothing in life is going to be easy. Like everything is going to be a roller coaster. It's how you come up from being down that defines you as a person. You're a perfect example of this. And this is a great story. And, with Brad as well. And you with the whole Mizzou connection. I feel attacked right now, even though we're not Big 12 anymore. I feel like there's a lot of Mizzou connection going on, but I'm going to let it slide. Right?
I mean,
I'm going to let it slide.
I'm not a UT fan.
But
I'm an Aaron Williams fan. Yeah, little bro, man.
My God.
Yeah.
Speak to me about, because I know your dad and also your uncle, I believe, played as well. Did that kind of help you understand of like what you were getting yourself into as far as like the recruiting? Did your dad help you with like, okay, look, these coaches are telling you things you want to hear, but they're not going to tell you the truth? Did your dad give you an insight of what the recruiting process is going to be like, or was that kind of like you kind of went through it on your own?
No, I was the tester for everything. I mean, just because recruiting was so different back then, like they didn't even really redistribute tape like that, like back then. Like it was more like the coach kind of found out who the best players in the area were, and then he'd pop by all the high schools, and then based off physical appearance and what he saw, he'd be like, "Yep, you have an offer here." You know what I mean? So like there was nothing that he could really relate to on that front in the recruiting process. And like my brother, my sister, and myself were all bigger recruits than he was coming out of high school. So it was a very, very different situation there. But the wisdom that man poured into me was far more about like his career and like the end of his career specifically, because my dad has had a lot of regrets with how his collegiate football career finished. And he has allowed that to create things in his life that were a problem for him, because he's kind of still attached to some of the ideas of like, what if. And what I love about my dad so much is he chose to, even though I still think he could have done a lot more to absolve himself or fix those things, like he has done an incredible job of imparting that wisdom into me and saying, Austyn, like regret will eat you forever. And like, you have to make sure when given a choice that you choose the longer road, but the right road every time. And like, that's more of the wisdom from a father down to a son that has completely changed my life. I mean, anytime again, that resiliency or grit has come up in my life, like it's not necessarily that I'm the most disciplined person on the planet. It's my fear of regret is about as strong as it could possibly be. And that's more the influence that my dad as a college player had on me.
It's like the two pains in life. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret.
The pain of regret.
Yeah.
100%.
The pain of discipline weighs ounces, the pain of regret weighs tons. Like
y'all preaching today.
Oh man,
that ain't y'all me. Preaching today, man.
That's not me, but that's also something I live by as well. It's like, man, I'm more afraid of regretting what I didn't do than regretting not being disciplined enough, as opposed to what the result is. You know what I mean? Like the result will take care of itself. But like, what did I do in the process? And I don't want to regret missing a step. So, all right. So to circle back. All right, this is exclusive content.
Uh-oh.
All right. I don't know if anybody out there is doing this, right?
Whoa.
Recruiting, all that. We have a former recruiting director at a SEC school, a really good one at that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What was your process as a recruiting coordinator? What actually happened? I know it changed a little bit with social media has gotten bigger, but what is the actual process of recruiting a player in the SEC?
There's a million different processes that have now all started to streamline a little bit. But, to each their own, which is not the answer that every high school kid in America wants to hear. But everybody does do things a little bit differently. At the University of Missouri, like we're battling different things, which is like our recruiting territories, like they're owned by those states. You're not going into Georgia and taking somebody away from Georgia. You're not going into Florida and taking somebody away from Florida. So like for Missouri specifically in the SEC, like we had to go find athletes that maybe were shorter than prototypical height or were a little lighter than prototypical weight and take football players. That's what we were looking for, was football players. And as a part of those football players was relationships. And so like we were big on really establishing that, because if we didn't have that, if we were just trusting measurables and all that stuff, we weren't going to be worth a shit, right? But for kids, like specifically, like the way it works is essentially like you go to a couple camps, right, at some point or another, and like all of the data that goes on at camps now is put into an enormous database. Like, and that database is bought and owned by all these colleges. So like basically that's what I say is like one of the reasons to go to a camp. But after that, I'm like, you don't really need to go to camps, is because like once your name is in the system, it's like you're going to be found. Like you don't have to worry about that, right? Then it's just natural. Like I think the thing that kids don't understand the most, that is, I don't hear anyone talking about this, is like a big thing is when coaches go to high schools to recruit seniors or juniors or meet with those people, they're asking, who are the freshmen and sophomores and eighth graders like in your guys' program? Because they're instructed to write those names down and to bring those names back to us. So it's almost like that preliminary pool of players that we see are the guys who our coaches have actually heard word of mouth from people about. And that's why like how you do anything is how you do everything, bro. People are always watching, and you got to understand that. Like you got to understand that it doesn't matter who it is or if you like the person or not. Like everybody's going to have something to say about you. And like coaches get that quickly. Like college coaches are digging into finding that freshman or sophomore from the high school coaches and the people on campus, because Nick Saban will fire their ass if they don't. You know what I mean? So that's the way that works. As far as the system at greater at large, it's game tape, dude. It's game tape. Like it's game tape.
Man, please say that again, man. Please say it again. If you don't have game tape, if you don't have something to prove, that tape, film don't lie. I have kids today that want to go to D1s that are at D2s or JUCOs, wherever the case may be. And they're like, Aaron, can you talk to this? Can you talk to that? I'm like, I would love to talk to them, but like, you got to show me your game tape, man. Like, I can't, because my name is online too. But I say, yo, this kid is this, and you show up and you're not that, it gets me a bad look. So it's super important. I'm glad you said that, kids. Yo, game tape. I don't care what you say, how you feel about yourself. If that game tape ain't translating, nothing matters.
Well, and the quote, man, Walter Payton, like the quote, like when you're good, you tell everybody about it. When you're great, they tell you.
Mm-hmm.
As a recruit, like you guys are lost in that top 6% of kids that are just like gigantic when they're in 8th grade and they get offered. And so you now distort that into you thinking that that's how recruiting is. Like that's not how recruiting is at all. You're looking at the 5% and you're applying that to the 100%. And that's not reality. Like what's reality is it's still earned. And so while everybody else is distracted thinking that the right camp or the right camera angle or the right tweet is going to get them recruited, they lose the fact that it's about how they play. And the way I like to flip that on athletes, especially you guys listening, like in high school, is that you're afraid. You're afraid. You don't trust yourself enough to do the work to get to where you want to go. You're trusting and hoping in somebody else. That's why what I do as a quarterback coach, like if I had $1 for every time somebody said, yeah, well, you can't throw like that. That's just Aaron Rodgers or that's just Patrick Mahomes. It's like, hold up. Watch Aaron Rodgers as a rookie in the NFL. He didn't look anything like what he looks like now.
Especially at Cal.
So what are we saying? Exactly. Hey, trust me. But what are we saying when we say that? And like I have texts and books that I read all about this shit, which is the reason people say that is because they didn't do it. And the reality is you'd rather live your whole life saying that that's just them and applying that to some invisible principle than you stare in the mirror and realize that you're responsible for where you are. And we all come from different shit, man. We all come from different shit. Like, and all the athletes that I've recruited, especially in your lower socioeconomic communities across the country, it's like, you're damn right. Like, you haven't been given the resources that everybody else has, but somebody made it out from worse.
Come on, bro.
If you can attach yourself to that and trust that, which is very, very, very hard to do. But if you can do that, it'll come to you. Like, I don't want to shine young. I want to shine late. I want to shine late. This is outlast, not outperform. Like, I'm in this thing forever.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. It's all about your tape, right? So let's say there is a kid who has tape, but can't seem to get it out there. What is the answer for them? Or is there an answer? Or just make the tape better? Or now I got to go to a camp to kind of play against some other kids? Like, what? There are legitimately some kids, maybe their resources, their coaches not sending it out. They're can't afford to go here and there. Like, what would be something helpful for them?
Naturally, when I go to Missouri's website, and I look up the coaching staff, I'm going to look at the 10 nights at the table, bro. I'm going to look at the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, running back coach, all the way across the room, right? Y'all are looking at the wrong people. You need to look at the GAs and the analysts and the guys, especially in the recruiting departments, because these guys are all trying to get their come up.
Mm-hmm.
What's their come up? Their come up is finding a good player. So if you're a good player, stop sending emails to the quarterback coach who never reads them. Connect with the lower, quote unquote, lower people within the organization that actually have a reason to want to watch your tape.
Yo, these are gems, man.
That's what I'm saying.
These are gems, man. I hope these people were watching this because I don't think I've ever heard it put in that way either. It makes sense because GAs are literally everywhere. Like, they see everyone. You rarely see the quarterback coach, the OCDC actively being out there. So that's a really good point that you said that.
Yeah, for sure. That would be the main one that is the easiest. And then the other thing that is not a tool, but is like, bro, also trust who watches the tape and likes the tape. You know what I mean? If that's one school and it's a D2 school, but you think you're a D1 caliber player, go become a D1 player through that D2 school. Like, go where they see who you are. That's the thing that I think, like, we put 7 Division I college quarterbacks out last year out of high school. And it's like, the one that I know is going to be the best, and my other 6 are all going to text me after this and get pissed off. But
hey, man, no. Truth is truth.
Okay, go ahead.
We got to be accountable. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is.
100% it's Braylon Ragland. And he chose to go to Georgia State. And he was being recruited by a lot bigger schools than Georgia State. But he recognized the offensive coordinator. He recognized what's going on over there. And for him, he, in his own words, Austyn, I'm making this decision because I know that these are the people who see my full potential in me. And that's why I'm going there, right? As opposed to these bigger schools that were recruiting him that didn't have that vision. And that's why, remember the name, Braylon Ragland. Just remember.
I like that story because it tells kids, go where you need to go, not where you want to go.
But how do I know when they're lying to me? Like, how do I know when they're selling me? They're telling me I'm Drew Brees. They see Drew Brees in me, and then they drop my scholarship. Or I see you as, a first round safety here just to get you there. Like, I know it's hard as a kid to determine the character of a person, especially an adult.
Mm.
But how do we know? How would you determine?
I think it comes down to accountability. And like you said, Austyn, knowing who you are as a person, you know, no one can tell you otherwise if you know truly who you are. And and it happens. I mean, I'm speaking from a guy right now that's been there, done that. But at a kid at 18, I get where you're coming from when they say you told me this, told me that. But at the same time, there wasn't a thing that coach told me that I felt like, I don't feel that about myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, if someone were to tell me, at that time you're the next Ed Reed, I'd be like, that's a compliment, but I'm not that. Like, you have to know yourself. It's a great compliment, but don't feed that and feel fill that into like, oh, this is exactly who I am. Yeah. It's just like, okay, I have a starting point. They see where I can be. I have a lot of stuff coming for me. Now I can put in that work to go do that. To me, it's about accountability. But Austyn, if you feel otherwise, let me know. I would love to hear.
No, I mean, I love that. I would say like, and this is grad school shit for young kids, but like something that I would say is recognize someone in the program that's recruiting you that is like you and go talk to them. So not just ask everyone in the locker room, hey, what's coach like? What's coach like? Like observe and see which guy is the guy that you recognize like that. And go to him and ask him, yo, bro, what's up? Like, I see you. What's up? And if you've done it right, he'll tell you.
That's so powerful. There's so many things that you said and that we talked about that are literally like life-changing if you let them. If you let them be. Like the power of observation, just as a human being and as an athlete, the power of shutting your mouth and listening and watching and learning is way more than you trying to pump yourself up or make yourself.
Especially as someone that comes in as a freshman, somebody new or just in general, but like the loudest one doesn't know what they're talking about.
I can tell a lot about a person just by how they move, how they interact with people, the eye contact they make. How long do they look at a person in a conversation? How long am I looking past you in a conversation? So if I'm talking to Aaron and I'm like, I'm always waiting for the next thing or the next person to come. As an athlete, like I can feel you as a man. If you're talking to me and you're not really engaged with me, you're not looking me in my eye, you're not connecting me on a personal level. Those are things you can use to determine like the sincerity of a guy, a sincerity of a coach, how that relationship will be as you get older and you go through the process. A lot of times it's that, we'll get into a second, the spiritual part of discernment, discerning somebody's spirit and who they are as an individual more than what they're telling me that they see in me as a player. And I think we get caught up in the recruiting world. We get caught up, and it's fun, it's exciting, but your career as an athlete will only last at best 29. When did you retire?
I started 27.
27. I was 29. And I played 9 years. And that's a pretty long career. You played 7.
6, 7.
Like, those are long careers, but you have to have other life skills. You have to know who you are as a person and carry these life skills over.
That message, y'all need to rewind that and listen to that again, what Brad just said. And I'm just going to flip one piece of that and be really quick with it, is they're watching you too.
Yeah.
So for me, quarterback's a different animal now. So when I'm recruiting quarterbacks up there, I don't give a damn what they say to me or what they say to our head coach. I'm watching the person on our official visit that's serving them food, the way they handle that.
Yeah.
So like what Brad just said is everything. Like definitely evaluate all of that, because you have to find your people, but also understand like there are a lot of kids that wanted to come to Missouri at the end of the recruiting cycle that thought their ass was going to Florida, that then by the time they said, hey, I want to come to Missouri, I said, bro, I know what you are. I know who you are. You ain't coming here.
It's character, man. It's character. How you do one thing is how you do everything, like you said.
All this comes back, even with Austyn's story, your story, and then we talk about relationships. At some point, this game's going to be over for everyone, whether that be you're at the age of 28, 30, 25, 20, or after college.
Mm-hmm.
How you treat people goes longer than what you did on that field. And I want all my student athletes from high school, college, and even the ones in pros, at some point, man, that clock is literally going to say 0, 0, 0 for the rest of your life. And from that point, how do you carry the relationships that you built from the time from high school up to wherever point you're at, and the relationships that you build, you can use those in the next life that you have, because football is not all who you are. It's what you do. I always say that. I get that from my dad, but it's important to me because when football ended for me, man, my whole life, it would completely 360. So I want everyone to know, like, relationships, keep intact. Treat people right, because I'm telling you, Austyn said it, it's a life circle. The people that he went through, they saw him, they respected him, they respected him as a man. And Austyn was at home, and they were like, "Yo, I remember that kid. He's a competitor. He treats people well. He's a hard worker. I need him on my team." He could have just been like, "Yeah, forget that coach that did me wrong."
Right.
Da 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 da. And that would look bad on him. But he stood up for what he felt like, and the real saw the real.
And not only the OC, the head coach, the quarterback coach, there's somebody who can do something for you. If I treat the assistant equipment manager with so much respect, I'm going to treat the booster with the same amount of respect.
Sure.
So can I call the University of Texas assistant equipment manager, if he's still there, and be like, "What was Aaron Williams like?"
Mm-hmm.
And then what would they tell me? What would they tell me about you?
Hey, shout out Chip, by the way.
See? You know,
That's my dog. He looked out for me in college. You know what I'm saying?
You know the name. All right, so moving on. We got a few minutes left. Austyn, tell us about Locked In Quarterback and what you're doing right now. Now, it's blown up pretty crazy, you and your brother KJ, and it can be a little controversial, things we talked about. So let's talk about Locked In QB, locked in mentality, kind of the mental health aspect as well. Can you just give us a little bit about Locked In?
Yeah, for sure. So Brad met me when I had carved my way into a role that really didn't exist in college football as a director of character and cultural development at Missouri. And so what we did was we put in some foundational personal development exercises, teaching about flow state, talking about anxiety, doing active things, coaches and players together, where we all got vulnerable with one another and started talking about life. And what I saw was spiritually, like, our organization just go into a completely different place. Like, we didn't have anybody enter the transfer portal over a 1.5 year period. We had the highest team GPA in the history of our school for 3 consecutive semesters in a row. Like, we were doing service projects and things in the community consistently. Like, you could feel it too. When you walked into the building, there was a heart behind what was going on. Well, I want to do that for the entire quarterback world, right? And in order to do that, like, for one, remember my background is psychology. So, like, if we're going to be able to do that, then what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to change the plane physically, mentally, and spiritually in order to have the paradigm shift. So one of the ways that I say it is, like, I teach art. Like, I don't teach mechanics. I teach art. Like, I teach you how to understand yourself. Like, and that is a holistic process. Like, there is no, we just spin the shit out of it. You want to know how Patrick Mahomes throws from all these different angles and does all that? The novice would say baseball. The expert would say external rotation and shoulder mobility. You know what I mean? Like, but Brad, you were a quarterback. How many times you ever talk about external rotation or shoulder mobility?
I learned about it last year.
Like, exactly. And by then it's over. So we're watching on TV all these guys that play free mentally out there. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen now has stepped into that world. Caleb Williams down in college football, Aaron Rodgers, like Tom Brady completely changed his mechanics from the New England Patriots to the Bucks. And so we're going where the game's going. And so for me, like, there's 2 different things that are happening within Locked In. The biggest one is our community. Our community that's coming together is people like your family, Brad, and like these families all over the country who recognize each other. Recognize that there's something deeper to this than just throwing the football or knowing what coverage we're playing against. Like, this is about the human beings that we are. And Aaron, you probably felt this too during your career. Is like, how often do we actually talk to each other?
Like real life talk, not just football. Like, life. I had a great practice, but like, yo, outside of practice, like, what's up? Yeah, nah.
What's up?
Really?
Yeah. And when have we ever been given, like, the ability to be vulnerable with each other? Like, being men and masculinity and shit is like, no, I'm hard, bro. Like, I'm tough as fuck. And it's like, yeah, except all of us are not. And we know that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, what our community does is I say that I own the golden gates to this community. And, like, I'm not going to let anybody into the community that doesn't recognize me and know who we are. And that's when we get into, like, spirituality and stuff, is like, of course it's God. Like, I don't separate spirituality and religion. Like, or I can separate them to look at them and say, spirituality to me is just relationship with self. Right. And, like, I'm going to absolutely use the Bible to learn all of these principles and to understand, bringing those 2 worlds together. But for me, it's the recognition of each other's heart, recognition of each other's mind, and what we're after. And what I know is that in the community I got now, like, yeah, we throw it better than everyone out there. And put it out there. There ain't a fucking coach in the country that is even close to being able to throw the ball the way my brother and I can. Not even close. There's not a quarterback coach in the country that can talk the way that I talk. Not even close. I've asked them for the smoke. Let's go talk. Let's go talk. Let's go help kids.
Woo! They're
all pissed because I got 35,000 followers on Instagram because I've been teaching kids and helping people while they're sitting behind their business model and their business plan. And then I say, yo, bro, if you got a problem with it, let's talk. No, I don't want to talk. Shit, you don't want to talk because I know what you charge. I know what you do. I know how you get the videos and photos of these players. I know what's up, bro. I know what's up. Oh, well, you don't know college football like that. Really? I coached in college football. You didn't do that shit. You don't know that shit. Tell me what I don't know. And that's why they're fucking pissed, is because I'm 32 years old and here comes this new train, and it's not a gimmick, bro. This is not about, oh, we throw cooler than you. No, we throw fucking better than you. That's how we throw. We know who we are. We know what we want. We align our life with holistic development. I'm a psychopath. You guys are psychopaths in this sense. There's no way Aaron Williams is doing what he's doing on the field if he doesn't eat right, if he doesn't stretch, if he doesn't work out, if he doesn't think right, if he doesn't sleep right. There's no way. There's no way. I'm the only dude out here coaching this shit and doing it at their level, meeting them at their level. Right? One of the things that pisses me off the most about coaches is I learned all this information. I'm super smart. I'm coach. And then I go down to a 15-year-old kid and I tell him that your spine angle should match your shoulder angle if the plane of that is balanced while your rotational force is going in the right direction. It's like, what the fuck are we talking about? Yeah. It's a community that's going to change the world of quarterback play across the country. It's already happening. And then what we're going to do, it's called Locked In Athlete LLC for a reason. It's because then it's going to go from quarterback to athlete. And then once I'm there, that's when I'm going to start talking humanity. Like that's how I see this. And it was a dream and a vision 4 years ago. And now we're here. And like, it's just, every day that somebody like Brad and his family become a part of my family, 10 more families recognize who the Smith family are. And they go, why would the Smith family be involved with them? And then they go, let's see who they are. And so their hearts and their minds are open to seeing shit that they don't usually see.
Yeah.
And when they see that, and I see that, let's go.
And it's a side note. We talk about community and humanity. Like, I'm a Christian. Like, I don't hide that. I go to church. I love church. I love my church. Shout out to my church, Mosaic. But I always stayed away from community because it has the ability to expose some things in me that I don't want other people to see, or my blind spots, right? Like, we would have like Bible studies. And like, you're going to be invited. You and your family can come to this community gathering, right? And so my wife and I would go, and we would show up 30 minutes before it ended, and then leave 5 minutes before it ended, because we did that. There's so much fear in community because, trust in people, and just over time, it's always been being a loner, doing this, and kind of being unique and separated from everybody else, and try to this elitist mentality. But what we found out is that the more we dove into community with one another, the more I learned about myself, the more I learned about what it actually means to be a man, to be a Christian, to be a father, a husband, that I wouldn't have learned this off by myself with this elite group off by ourselves. And that's why I see with you and just getting to know you and your program is it's not an exclusive thing that only this guy can do, or they can do, or this person with this amount of athletic talent. No, this community is for everybody, but you have to spend time and be willing to be humble enough to be taught.
Got to put in the work.
Totally.
I love the way you both of y'all are preaching. I usually do the most talking, but y'all are, hey, when someone's talking, the great person doesn't always talk. They sit and they listen. And you grasp the knowledge that, because there are things that Brad knows that I don't know, and there's some things I know that Brad don't know. But if we just sit back and we listen and we keep an open mind, instead of being like, man, no, I know this. It's like I'm learning from Brad. Brad's learning from me. I'm learning from you. You're learning. Like it's a community thing. So if you separate yourself from the community, it's like, how can you figure out who you are really?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you shared that, man.
It's good.
Deep.
And then, okay, Locked In is awesome. Locked In's blown up and doing well. But then just to close, the mental health state of youth sports. Let's zero in on that.
It's a crisis. It's the biggest crisis in my eyes that our society is facing. And the reason is because technology has done something to us that is like a runaway train where it's very hard to understand, like the impact of playing video games for 6 hours a day does to you, or what being on a cell phone when you're 8 years old does to you. So Generation Z is this generation of athlete. Like, you guys have on average the same level of anxiety as a 1950s psychiatric patient did. Like, the reason that that's the case is because you have a cell phone in your hands, which means you're in social contact. You can contact anybody at all times, but most of the time you're alone.
Wow.
And that process doesn't feel right to the human spirit. And so what that's doing is it's creating anxiousness and anxiety that is then spiraling into depression. And now, since COVID, you just have to say the facts as what the facts are. Like, we've seen a triple increase in suicide over the last 3 years than we did from the previous decade. Like, these are real things. And yet in the world of sports, everything that's being perpetuated and everything that these kids and their families are taking on are being dictated along external lines. Everything is about physical. Everything is about what you look like. Everything is about recruitability, how good you are. All of these things, that's vanity, when the reality is what needs support is the heart and the spirit. But then, not to just involve myself with this, but it's a good example, is like, but then I come into a space and I'm speaking that truth to the athlete's heart and mind, and all the powers that be in the industry are shitting on us because their business model doesn't support helping that side.
Facts.
That's when I say something like heavy is the head that wears the crown, or the weight that I carry every single day is like, do you know how hard it is to just want to help you guys that are listening understand that I was somebody that y'all looked up to? I was a captain at 2 big universities and started 30 games in college football. And part of my language, I was fucked up in my mind and in my heart. I was a great person, but I didn't know who I was. And I didn't know who I was because I was so worried and insecure about what the world thought of me and not what I thought of me. And everything that you're doing right now in your athletic development is making you think that what matters is what the world thinks of you. What matters is what you think of you. That's what matters. And ultimately, the secret of life, the secret is when you know who you are, you'll get everything you're looking for. But life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need. It's going to force you to deal with that repeated failure, anxieties, depressions, and all of these things until you come back inside to you.
Yeah.
And at your age as a young athlete, that's a very, very difficult thing to do. But there are people like these two guys and like me that are out here sharing what's real. And you'll notice that the people who have been through the most and the people that you probably look up to the most are the ones who are all saying this. Whereas the guys who haven't tasted this,
not an ounce of what goes, like the heartache and the mental capacity it takes to just be a top athlete and then on top of trying to figure out who you are is super hard. And I'm glad you said, because to me, man, I was messed up till like a year and a half, 2 years ago. It took me a few ups and downs and the trials and tribulations. Man, after football stopped, man, the real world really came down on me, and I thought I knew exactly who I was, and in actuality, man, that number 23 is who I thought I was, and I didn't think I was Aaron Williams. I just always thought 23 was, who I was, and then no longer people knew who I was as 23. So I was like, okay, I'm Aaron, and they're like, okay, where you like? I'm like, what? I did this, I did that, like, you know what I'm saying? And that time, people were like, yo, who are you? And I was like, man, I didn't know my hobbies. I didn't know the likes, dislikes. I didn't know my triggers. I didn't know any of that. And it take a lot of trial and tribulations and understanding. Acceptance is like, okay, this is what I have to work on this. All right, it's a lot of accepting. And then once you accept, and like you said, once you figure out who you are, man, life is, it's not going to say it's easier, but it's more comfortable moving on forward when you realize who you are and having your mental like intact, man, because if you don't have your mental intact, man, life is super hard, and you can forget about playing good on the field. You forget about for relationships that you created off the field, even on the field. Because if you are as yourself as a person is not intact with who you are, man, things can ruffle up some feathers. So I'm glad you put that in perspective.
And 99% of dudes who've done it, men and women who've done it at a high level, they move differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Austyn, like they think differently. There's certain things that we won't say or do or push in a kid because it doesn't matter. Because we see what down the line, what that actually produces when we get there and we're depressed and we're going down that spiral where you talk about when people turn their backs on us and when the crowd is cheering for you, cheering for you one game, you get hurt and they boo you. And then you come back again and they cheer for you again. I've been there.
Yo, that's a crazy.
I've been on the field with 65,000 people cheered when I got hurt. Came back the next week and cheered because I scored.
You're great, Brad. Thanks for scoring those touchdowns. Like it's crazy
and it hurts.
Yeah.
But like there's certain things and it makes you go to a place. Austyn, you could maybe talk about it. And I know you've been there. That it's when you love something so much and you give everything you have, there's a place you can go when it don't go right. That is utter despair. That you don't want to be around. I don't want to be around. I don't even want to be here existing anymore.
Yeah,
exactly.
And people don't understand that's a real place that a lot of these athletes are going to because we're putting so much weight on who they are with pads and helmets or shorts and a ball and not who they are on an individual and operating from wholeness as a person to performance, not performing so you can be whole.
You're getting an NIL deal. You shouldn't be sad. You got
all
this money. Everybody knows who you are. You're a great this, great that.
No, man.
But when I go home, I'm sad. Yeah. I'm in the dark. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. Yeah. And it's confusing, and it needs to be talked more because that's one of the key things that us athletes fight for after football is done. There's a lot of people that even my former teammates now, we call each other all the time. Bro, you good? Man, I'm going through. Hey, I'm glad you're telling me this because if you didn't, I know you. I know you're ready to do whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. So the communication of being hard, being this tough guy, you can do that in between those white lines. But when you're out of those white lines, we need to start talking more like, bro, I know I hit you hard, but how are you, like, girlfriend, bro, let's go out. Let's do something to get your mind off. We don't do that. We're just supposed to think like, oh, you're a football player. You're a hard guy. No, you have no feelings. You don't feel, there's no such thing as depression for you. Like you have all these things and it's like, that's not the case. All those, like you said, external things that don't even matter to the soul and the heart is affecting us as a person because we find those distractions meaning so much more to us. The money, the cars, the women, the parties, the accolades, the acceptance from other people when we really should be accepting just ourselves, who we are internally.
100%. And to party out what you guys just said, I would just encourage everybody that is listening to this, that's an athlete, to really take some time and separate. And you can even call yourself two different names. but separate who you are as a football player and who you are as a person. Because that depth of pain that Brad was just referring to, like that identity being caught up, like that Aaron was just talking about, it's like if you can establish that the man on the field and his performance on the field doesn't mean anything in regards to who the man is off of it, like that will save your life and a lot of other people's lives as well.
Real talk. That was man. Look, Austyn, thank you so much, bro. You did a hell of a job, man, sharing your story. I know a lot of things you didn't naturally share. This is your first time sharing, and I know it's a big thing for you, and I really do appreciate it. How can the people get in contact with you, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, how can they get in contact with you if they have questions?
You'll all find out soon, but just Locked In QB. Just go look that up and enjoy the ride.
Man, Austyn, thank you again. Y'all looked up Locked In QB. Brad, I hope you have a great week. Thank you guys for coming for episode 2 of Connected Podcast. We look forward to seeing you guys next time. Prayer and wishes. See you again. Thank you.